It was a historic moment in Michigan's history. You're looking at the clash at the Capitol from last December. Despite the cries from unions across the state, the legislature approved and Governor Rick Snyder signed laws making Michigan the 24th right-to-work state. Now, this law takes effect next month. A similar situation played out in Indiana a year ago. After then Republican Governor Mitch Daniels signed right-to-work legislation, opponents claimed it would break down the middle class, while those for it believe it would create jobs in the private sector. So what impact has right-to-work had on the Hoosier state? We traveled there to find out. Indiana is known as the crossroads of America. Manufacturing has a major presence here, and so do the unions. But when the economy started to slow and unemployment was on the rise, lawmakers needed an economic fix.
It has absolutely been a net positive for Indiana, and I expect the results to be the same for Michigan.
One solution, right-to-work legislation. Last year, Indiana was the 23rd state to pass the law, which makes joining a union optional for workers. It's also the second time it's been passed here. It was in place in the late 1950s and repealed in the 60s. And in the years since it's been back, Cam Carter from the Indiana Chamber of Commerce says the legislation has already made a difference.
I think it's working because people want to be free, they want to have and earn more money, they want to have more opportunity for themselves.
If you take a look at the numbers from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, or the IEDC, which brings business to the state, right now there are 91 companies that have expressed interest in Indiana since it became right to work. Of that, 64 have entered into negotiations with the state, and so far 39 companies have signed on the dotted line. Those companies are expected to bring in about 4,500 jobs and $1.6 billion in investment. And the Chamber says there are no worries about these being good-paying jobs. It's expected the companies who have signed on will pay workers an average of $22.16 an hour. That's almost $3 higher than the state average.
More companies, more investors are taking a look at Indiana, and they're looking to hire more people.
Does it bring more business? I think the answer is resoundingly no.
The president of the AFL-CIO claims the work being touted by the IEDC was in the works long before right-to-work legislation was signed.
Their list is exactly what their list would have been absent the passage of right-to-work.
Even though union membership is still strong after the passage, WJIT says the fight continues to get it off the books.
We have seen employers being more aggressive at the table, trying to negotiate more concessions, more give-backs.
It's only been a year, and everyone agrees it's still too early to measure any major shift in Indiana's economy. But what's in store for Michigan as we prepare for right to work? Well, that really depends on who you ask.
Given the Indiana experience, Michiganders don't have much to fear from this.
The promises won't come to fruition, but the pain probably will.
Now, we contacted the list of companies that the IEDC claims expanded in Indiana because of the right-to-work legislation, and we were turned down, or in our phone calls were not returned by most of those companies, except for one, a Michigan-based company with a plant in Indiana. How much of a role did right-to-work play in expanding in that state? That story tomorrow night on ABC 12 News at 6.
Well, now to another